Today on Mental Health News Radio, Kristen is joined by Angela Myer for part 1 of this 2-episode show on Undetected Narcissists.
I wanna try and take in all the highs, embrace them for more than a moment's time. I want you, please don't move when I push you away. I know I contradict myself some days. But will you ride the lows with me?
Welcome to Mental Health News Radio. I am your host, Kristen Sunanta Walker. Our goal is to help discussions about mental health be a regular part of your daily life, no different than discussions about physical health. Mental illness can be a topic of discussion under the umbrella of mental health, along with so many other topics. This show is the original program on mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com. Our network of shows are played in over 180 countries and cover more topics under that umbrella than you can possibly imagine. We were talking about mental health long before it became cool and popular to talk about, and thank goodness it has become so popular. We have incredible guests, advocates, patients, experts, people. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy our intro music, a song named Lows, written by Aubrey Toon. You can find her music at www.aubreytoone.com.
That night when I started praying, I cried. Will you ride the lows with me? Will you ride the lows with me? When I'm down, my vision gets blurry.
Angela, thank you so much for coming on Mental Health News Radio.
Thank you for having me here. It's really exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I love the name of your book, which I know we're going to talk about during this show. And I love the topic. Obviously, I've told you this, as I've told many people, it's still the most popular topic on the network. And I'm glad that you're, doing your own podcast and, that you're adding to the many, many voices here on the network. So please tell everyone, the name of your podcast, your book, and a little bit about yourself.
So the name of the book is The Undetected Narcissist, and my podcast is the same name. It's the Undetected Narcissist Podcast. And my name is Angela Myer. And why I wrote the book is I realized that what happened to my son and I is happening to families and children all over the United States. And it's a huge crime, and it's really going undetected because they can just get away with it. And that's the real scary thing. So as you know, everyone's talking about Amber and Johnny Depp,
Right.
The whole trial thing. And the most beautiful thing that I saw that he did, the smartest thing that he did, was having that psychologist on board to watch her testimony. And I thought that was excellent because they know how to fool so many people.
Yeah.
They know how to fall through the cracks. And a lot of people can't afford that. They can't afford to hire a psychologist to sit in and watch their testimony or their body language or how they react. And the biggest thing that I've kind of learned, because I went through the whole experience, myself, I write about going to court and how he fooled over a dozen professionals, that it's really, it can just be so confusing. You can just get so lost. And the way that I was able to find out really who's the victim is the one that's not laughing or smearing or snickering or thinking the whole thing is comical. And the real victim is the one that apologizes and takes responsibility for their actions and is humble and admits, that their imperfections, but also is sorry about whatever happened. And it's just, I look at it, it's a perfect time for this to be happening, because we need to talk about it. We really, really do. If we want to live in a world where we have more peace, harmony, and cooperation, we need to talk about narcissism.
Yeah, I find it fascinating going through this with a family member. It's really odd. Usually it's me in the middle of it, with going toe to toe with some character disordered person. But those days seem to have waned for me, thank God. But now I realize, oh, okay, well, if life is a culmination of all the things that you've been through and everything has been a lesson for you to learn, someone came in your life to teach you something. I needed all of those master classes in order to deal with the one I'm dealing with now, because I'm not the person that was married to them. I'm the support of the person that was married to them. And you're right. It's very, the legal profession, the court wants to treat this as, oh, it's just a typical divorce.
But
Oh,
it's not.
Yeah. And oh, it's just, oh, they're just being bitter. And it's like, okay, do you not understand that someone that I love had someone targeting them and trying to kill them and trying to elicit my support and making that happen for them so that they could get all their money, all those things. And people just don't want to. It's that human nature thing where you just
don't want to think of them that way.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like, for that part is really, you have to have, you have to have steel around you, because you're going to be blamed. You're going to be the one called the crazy one. You're going to and you have to just be like, And so I know that every step of the way, with all these different kinds of character disordered people I've had in my life, that was all there in preparation for me to deal with this.
Exactly. Yeah. And you said it perfectly, because I really look at it is, now that I'm no longer caught up in it and I've had that experience, and my brain is it's gone back to normal of
right,
as it should be, but I can view the whole thing from a broader perspective and a different perspective. And it's really sad, because if he would have just sat down and communicated with me and had the ability to put his wounds aside, like his childhood wounds and all his unresolved issues aside, and just was able to communicate with me and connect with me, I would wish that things would have been better, but it didn't. And he saw me as a threat. And
right,
it's kind of backwards, because they really are coming from that trauma brain where they're stuck in survival mode, and they can't access their cortex brain, which has to do with logic and reason and thinking, and like, hey, let's find this gray area. But to them, it's just black and white. And it's so hard to have a rational conversation with them. And it's so unfortunate, because when I was going through all of it, I went to like the Center of Hope and Safety. I went to legal aid. I tried to find whoever could help me and talk to me, and so many people were in the dark. And I remember one time my kiddo had a PTSD meltdown and disassociated, and I had to call the police over. And there was 3 officers and 1 mental health professional here. And I asked all of them this one question: do you know what a covert narcissist is? And everyone said no.
Yeah, I know. That just shocks me. That absolutely, when we talked about that off the air, and that just absolutely, I'm like, did you not know who was president for? I mean, not that he's covert, but I mean, just like, really?
Right.
Like, you don't know what a narcissist is? Like, are you joking? Yeah.
Right.
That's just bizarre.
It is. Well, and the best way that I explain two different narcissists is Trump is the in your face, the hot anger narcissist. You know it, you see it. And in a way, I think it's healthier to have that hot anger because you let it boil to the surface, you spew it out and you move on. But Putin, he is a cold-hearted.
Yeah.
He is a covert narcissist. And those are the ones that plot, and they're quiet and they're sinister, and they let that anger brew and brew and brew. And to me, that's the most dangerous because they're not letting it go.
Yeah. And they also are really, they love the buffoonery of an overt narcissist because they get them to do their dirty work for them because they've appealed to their narcissism and their need to, I take credit for this, that, and the other. And you're just like, okay, you're a buffoon and you're being used as, another presidential candidate said so well, Putin used him as his puppet. Not that we meant to go into political, but I look at this, listeners, if you love these people, I feel for you, but the thing is, if you stand back from it and look at it from the psychological perspective, you can see this behavior and it's there. I think the thing that people really don't get is you keep trying to come at this toxic relationship with reason and an understanding of why someone would do this instead of, okay, stop doing that. That is such a waste of your effort and your energy and your emotional bank account and lots of times your physical bank account, because you're talking about someone who's character disordered.
Right.
They are not going to do anything that a normal, rational person, even a normal, rational person that is, going through a divorce or a death or whatever, and they're not at their best. There's still a little, some rationalism there. You are not dealing with that with someone who's diagnosed character disordered, period. You're just not.
Correct. Because they're fully invested in it. And that's the weird thing is even if they know it's going to destroy them, they still are so invested and they still believe in their mind that they are right. And it's sad because that literally happened, in our situation where I was begging my son's father to not do this, not do this, not do this. And even my son was begging him, and he was so determined, like, no, I'm going to do this. And the attorneys were trying to tell him, like, are you sure you want to do this? And he literally spent like $70,000 just for this 4-day trial to try to destroy me. And in the end, and that was the scary thing is I also had to have like a psyche eval, and I was totally misdiagnosed, completely misdiagnosed. And the guy that diagnosed me was trauma ignorant. I don't even think I honestly think he was probably narcissistic as well. Because when someone talks about domestic violence, you should listen.
Right.
I had letters and documents. I even had like family members talking about, the things that I experienced. And the person turned around and said that I was the angry one. I can laugh at it now, but that's why I lost custody of my son was I was misdiagnosed. And the guy said, no, she doesn't have PTSD, but she's hypervigilant. Well, excuse me, hypervigilant is a part of PTSD.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
No, I'm not being serious. That's what he gave me. And so I'm like, and the beautiful thing is when in the book, I was forced to get a second psyche eval. And the person that did it literally said she's a survivor of domestic violence. And the lady that did the line editing on the book was like, oh my God, you need to do a comparison of this side by side, because this is crazy.
Right.
One person saying you're angry and and he said I had a distorted view of reality. It's like,
well, who have you been with for how many years that was distorting that view of reality?
I know. It's like, how could I have a distorted view of reality when this person literally is traumatizing me? And yes, it's just, I mean, I can laugh at it now. But back then, right? Of course, you can't. But the biggest thing that just concerns me is this was a crime. Literally, I remember speaking to Julie Cantrell, and she's a New York Times bestselling author, USA Today bestselling author, and she works with a lot of domestic violence survivors. And she said, do you know what happened to you is a crime?
Yeah.
And what happened to your son is child abuse, and he got away with it. And that's the scary thing. So scary is, and she even said, this is happening to so many families all over the US.
Oh, absolutely.
It's got to stop. Someone's got to stand up and say, it's got to stop. We have to become trauma aware. We have to learn about narcissism, because they manipulate and take advantage of everybody. And the ones who suffer are these innocent, beautiful children.
I know. And it's so bizarre to sit back and, check the boxes. Okay, so if we do this, they're going to do this. Like you're playing chess with someone, right, who is there without sufficient empathy, with that, gray matter in their brain, the areas of the brain not lighting up where ours light up with empathy. And yes, they are very good at strategizing, and they can do, depending on their level and their intelligence. Everybody, equates, a narcissist is always highly intelligent. I'm like, no, I know some really, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Right. They're just like anybody else. They're some super intelligent, some not. But you are playing a chess game with them, and it feels uncomfortable for you because it is uncomfortable, but you have to get to a point where you push your emotions aside and play this game, because they can't, without fuel, they can't sustain, for very long. They can do 3, 4, 5, 6 moves ahead, most, not all.
Right.
But you knowing this and what you're dealing with, you can definitely get to a place where you have this much wider perspective, and you can be 8, 10, 12, way, way ahead of them. And when you get to that spot, you can sit back and look at them and go, okay, well, now because I did this, they're going to do this.
Right.
But you're the only one like clapping, like, yep, I caught it. It's a very lonely little victory it's not really even a victory, because no one, if you try to tell someone, yep, these things happen, they really don't want to hear about it. I've learned to make it into a game. Okay, 10 points if they show up and do this, this, and this that we know they're going to do, and 20 points if they don't. Because they're going to do something outrageous, because that's what a character disordered person does.
Right. No, I fully agree in that area. And it really took me a while to try to learn how to be a step of them or predict what they're going to do. Because my mind just doesn't. It just doesn't.
Yeah, you're not character disordered. Yeah, right. We learn through dealing with them and watching this behavior. We don't learn it because we understand it at a deep intrinsic level, because we're not character disordered.
Right. And well, one kind of big thing that I learned that was really interesting is a lot of them aren't solution oriented.
Right. Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. And that really blew my mind. And what I've learned sometimes is if I give them a proposal, because a lot of times, because they're not solution oriented, they want to blame, fight. And when I worked on like, okay, I need him to cooperate with me and I'm going to come up with a proposal. And the best way that I learned to do that is they're all self-serving. So how can I word it in a way where it seems like it's going to benefit them more than it's going to benefit me, but in reality, it's really benefiting me.
Right.
You get what I mean? It's like
totally.
It's so hard to do, but it's like, they manipulate me. So how can I say it in a way that kind of manipulates them to go along with, it's
a trip, and you can't do that when you're fresh coming out of this, because there's just no way. All the gaslighting and the PTSD, it takes a while before you can have your own strategy that's an actual strategy, instead of you just in reactive vigilant, as that guy said, mode all the time. But yeah, it's really bizarre. And it's bizarre too, because I love how you say that they're not solution oriented. I mean, even things that you think that they would want, or something they've been fighting for.
Right.
So let's say you're getting a divorce and they really want all the vehicles. So you figure out a way to strategize and go, okay, now I'm not playing this anymore. You can have all the vehicles. Guess what? The next week they're going to come in and they're going to have something wrong with this thing that they fought and campaigned so hard to get, because it's not about the get. It's about the game for them.
Right. Well, and sometimes if you like willingly we're going to give them the cars, that's not enough for them.
Yeah.
It wasn't painful for you. You weren't suffering or hurting. So, well, why do I want it if you're not, like crying like, oh, this car, I got it. But if you really wanted to manipulate them, you could fake some tears and be like, oh, I'm going to miss this car. And they'll think, oh, I won. But you're like, oh, no, you didn't.
Yeah, it's so bizarre. Well, tell me, how did you come up with, or why was the word undetected? I can get some of it, yes, but how deep does that go for you with that word choice?
It goes super deep, because he really went undetected by over a dozen professionals. And when I mean professionals, I mean social workers, teachers' aides, to a parent coordinator. I mean, that's the hardest one in the whole book. If you want to ask me who's the one character that I struggle with the most forgiving, it's the parent coordinator, because she was turned into a flying monkey. And she did the narcissist keyword is jumping on the bandwagon. She didn't do any fact checking, believed everything he said, and reported it to the judge as truth.
Oh, wow.
Didn't even investigate, didn't even interview. I mean, this woman didn't know that. I mean, she told the judge that I lived in the same house, that my daughter still lived with me, that, just all these things. And she didn't realize that I had moved. The last time she was in my home was like a year and a half. She didn't know that my daughter was engaged and my daughter was living with her fiance. She didn't know that my daughter was my son's personal support worker. I mean, there was all these facts, and you would think someone before going in front of a judge would fact check. She didn't talk to my son's therapist. She didn't talk to the psychologist. There was so many people. She didn't even talk to my therapist. She didn't talk to any of these people until after the trial, which is insane.
That part's difficult because, yes, they manipulate other people and this kind of stuff happens. So what you're coming up against in that way is someone doing something so wrong and despicable at the hands of this other person and their own, and their need to not be wrong.
Right. And it was so challenging for me because I'm a person that has moral ethics and integrity, and I really stand by it, especially in my career. And I think what disturbed me the most is I was dealing with someone that was court appointed by the judge, and this person should have a background, let's say, in family law and raising children or anything in that area. And she insulted my therapist so bad that my therapist looked into her background and said, this woman should not be a parent coordinator. She has no credentials at all to be in this job. Why is she a parent coordinator? And it blew my mind, because she's basically a parent coordinator is supposed to help families dealing with difficult people. Well, narcissistic people are just difficult people.
Most difficult.
Yes,
people.
You should be educated in this. And because she wasn't educated and wasn't informed, it fell through the cracks. And here's the thing that I learned in writing the book is when she was hired, I would learn how, from emails and letters and legal documents, how to decode and detect the narcissist. Because when I highlighted all the key words that I said, it was in everybody's face, where I said in a letter, he had to create drama to hire her. Right. He's lying. Here's the proof. And that's the crazy thing, is I had all this proof. And I gave it to the parent coordinator, showing he's lying. He lied about everything to get you hired. And here's all the proof. And she didn't do anything.
No, because then at that point, she's also protecting her job. And I mean, did anything ever happen with that? Did this, and I'm asking a ridiculous question because I know the answer to it, but did she ever apologize, own up to what she did, even a little bit?
No, the only person that did apologize was the judge, because she stepped down after the trial, and he was supposed to report all this information to the judge, and he didn't. He was withholding information, and I had to basically become a detective, and I realized that there was medical neglect, Child Protective Services was going out almost every week, because the neighbors and people were calling in. The police were going to his house all the time. Our son was supposed to take hydroxyzine for his anxiety attacks. He never filled the bottle. Never.
Wow.
Yeah. And our son has cerebral palsy and autism, and he didn't take him to PT. So that was something he was supposed to have once or twice a week. So he wasn't doing that. And it was terrible. And it was so sad, because when he finally went back to the judge, he admitted to the judge that he damaged this child and he damaged the relationship.
Wow. You mean your ex or the judge?
My ex admitted this to the judge. And I had a friend of mine sitting in the background, and she said she literally could see the judge's eyes were tearing up, because she admitted that she made a big mistake. And I think that's when the judge realized who I was dealing with, because it wasn't about this child. It was about me. He wanted to hurt me.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that is the interesting thing. And it's interesting to watch them work. And they're so, without shame, from something as simple as, they could have been chopping wood 2 hours for court, and then they show up in court and all of a sudden they have a cane. I mean, it could be something as,
Right.
that kind of shamelessness, even more disturbing as plotting with family members to try to get someone declared incompetent so they can take over their finances. And this stuff happened. It's not, listeners, this is not just a Netflix movie or series. This is for real stuff that goes on every day. And it's not what pisses me off more than anything is people who haven't experienced this, or they, and that makes them somehow special, that they look at you as if, oh my God. And then you have some sort of cooties because this is happening to you. Oh, you just invite drama in your life, and that's why this is happening to you. Immediately goes into victim blaming.
Right.
And I'm like, what? Okay, you know what? Good luck, because guess what? It will happen to you. and you are going to be so unprepared.
That's the interesting thing, because so many people don't know about narcissism. So many people don't. And everyone that I have talked to has met someone that is narcissistic.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and when I was speaking to someone just the other day about empaths, we got on the topic of, it almost seems like the empath always has narcissistic people in their family, and that it goes on generation to generation. And it's just really, I found it very, very interesting on that aspect. But I wanted to tell you, there was one thing that was really important, and I'm going to backtrack here a bit. When you said, about the dozens of people that he fooled, and one of the people that he did fool was a child psychologist. And what was really interesting is when the psychologist said to me, he's narcissistic. And when I Googled the word narcissistic, I was like, well, he can't be in this category because he just didn't meet the profile. Man, I wish the psychologist would have said to me, no, he's
covert.
A covert. Yes. If he would have said that, he checked every single box. But because I wasn't given that information, I didn't know. So I was still completely in the dark.
Right.
Completely in the dark. And that's the scary thing is, yes, he spent 5 years figuring out how to plot and destroy my life. I mean, he found people that, a family member of mine that literally gave him part of my inheritance so he could take me to court.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get shocked or not even shocked. My, oh my God is, oh my God, that happened to you. But there's no shock in it because I know these things happen. I mean, a friend of mine is still went through many, many things that you and I have talked about, lost custody of her son. The court was against her, the ex, this and that. I went to court to testify on her behalf, spent $500,000 in legal fees. And now she has to represent herself because she can't. And the kid is now 18 and he's still filing lawsuits against her just because it isn't about the protection of the child.
Right.
He wants her to suffer for the rest of his life, because she dared to divorce him.
Right. Yeah. It's really just, it's backwards.
But will you ride the low, low, lows with me? Will you ride the low, low, lows with me?
One thing you can always count on at Mental Health News Radio Network and my show is that there will always be dogs around. Why? They are natural healers, excellent for your mental health. The original therapy dog Miles has something to say in just a moment. For now, please check out all of our amazing shows at mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com and all your favorite podcast apps. Until next time, I'm Kristen Sananta Walker, and thank you for listening.
And I can ride the low, low, low lows with me. I can ride the lows with me till my vision clears up perfectly. I can ride the lows with me.
Good boy.